going on, everyone? So the New Orleans Pelicans and Brandon Ingram are in quite an interesting spot, right? New Orleans Pelicans are shopping Brandon Ingram, but the market in the trade front seems to be kind of non-existent. Like, teams aren't really lining up to go and trade for Brandon Ingram. There is an argument to be made for the Pelicans to just keep Brandon Ingram, right? I understand you got Troy Murphy and Herb Jones, and it's like, okay, those two guys kind of fit, especially alongside newly acquired DeJounte Murray, and, you have CJ McCollum and Zion, where those guys don't really need the ball the way that Brandon Ingram does, but also Brandon Ingram gives you the best chance as far as like ceiling raising goes. However, the Pelicans don't want to give Brandon Ingram a max. Any team that goes to trade for Brandon Ingram would more likely than not have to give him a max. And Brandon Ingram, based on reports that recently came out, say that Brandon Ingram wants 200 plus million. And it just doesn't really make sense for a team to go and acquire him when there is so much injury concerns. And what is his ceiling as far as a player goes, right? Like, he is not going to be a top 5 player in this league. He's just not. Right? He's a very good player, but he's not a number 1 guy. Is he your number 2 guy? I don't know. Maybe it depends on the number 2, right? Like, what does he look like alongside like a Giannis or a Jokic, right? Like, is he maybe enough for you to win a championship? But unless you have one of those guys, he's probably best as your 3rd option. And it's like, are you really trying to pay $200 million over, 5 years, which is $40 million a year for a guy that's probably not your number 1 or 2 option, right? And then that's where the Lakers come in. Like, yes, the Pelicans now have more incentive to trade Brandon Ingram to the Lakers, right? The Pelicans traded the Lakers 2025 first to the Atlanta Hawks, so Atlanta now owns that pick. So Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans may go, hey, let's ship him to the Lakers. But again, there's questions and concerns about Brandon Ingram. I don't hate the idea of Brandon Ingram, right? If the Lakers could go and acquire Brandon Ingram, fine, I'm all for it. Bring him in. But if he wants $200 million, it doesn't make any sense. If he wants, 4 years, $120 million, right? So basically $30 million a year, then sure, right? Like, because I do think he is in that like $25 to $30 million range, right? And especially with just the contracts in the NBA today, and then on top of that, just with the salary cap increasing year in and year out, right? Like, $30 million a year in 2 years won't be as bad as it is right now, right? And you'd basically have him lined up with LeBron and AD, right? You probably have a year or 2 post LeBron with Brandon Ingram, but then that's where it also becomes a question is like, okay, is Brandon Ingram and Anthony Davis, are those 2 guys your answer post LeBron? I don't think so. Now, obviously it depends on how other guys shape up, right? Like, can Austin Reeves continue to grow and develop? Can Max Christie maybe take some strides? Can he kind of take the next step, take the next leap, right? Like, if you get 2 or 3 guys that are currently on this roster that are able to kind of take the next step and be a key component, then maybe, you might have just enough talent front to back to where Brandon Ingram and Anthony Davis can give you enough. But even then, it's like, how many games are they going to be able to play together? Like, there's no question Brandon Ingram's skill set. He's a versatile wing, 6'8", could basically play 2 through 4. He's got like, what, a 7'2 wingspan, 7'3 wingspan, something like that. His ability to knock down the 3 ball, his ability to go and create his own shot. Like, he would be great because he'd give you a bucket getter, a guy that could play off ball. You see him play off ball all the time next to CJ McCollum and Zion. He's a guy that, in crunch time can go hit shots and close down the stretch for you. He's a guy that, offense getting stagnant. Hey, BI, go get a bucket. Like, here you go. Just use your versatility, go get a bucket. Right? There's a lot that Brandon Ingram provides. He is kind of like the perfect complement of what the Lakers need. A bucket getter, a versatile defender, and a guy that has versatility on basically both sides of the basketball. But again, it's like, how many games is he going to give you? You look at his career. The most games he ever played in a season was 79 games, and that was his rookie season. And he only started 40 of those games. Since becoming a starter, he has played 59 games, 52 games, 62 games, 61 games, 55 games, 45 games, and 64 games. The most games he has played besides his rookie season was 64 games, which was last year. 64 games. That's not even enough games for you to qualify for accolades. It's not even enough for you to do anything. Like, if he's only playing 65 games a year, like, again, that's basically average. And like, the reason 65 games is like the threshold by the league is because that's kind of where a lot of these stars are playing. A lot of these stars are playing like 65 plus games. But again, you look, that's the most he's played since his rookie season. He's averaging around like 55 games a season. Brandon Ingram, 55 games a season is not going to cut it, especially post LeBron James, right? Because now, like, Anthony Davis, he's been a model of health the last like year and a half, but can that maintain? And even if it does, let's say Anthony Davis is basically a lock for, 72 games this season going forward, right? Like, he's still, if your other star is only giving you 50 a game or 50 a season, right? Like, how good are you going to be? I guess, at the end of the day, as long as you make the playoffs and the BI is healthy, you have a shot. But it's like, you still need to get proper seeding, and it's just like, I think that the Lakers should personally stay away from Brandon. Like, I've really thought about this. I was on the Brandon Ingram train a little bit, not like massive, but I was like, yeah, I kind of like the idea. I if you can get it done, go get it. Obviously, it depends on the cost. Right? Like, if basically no one else is willing to trade for Brandon Ingram and you can get Brandon Ingram for, say, like a first and salary filler, then, like, it's almost worth the risk. Even if you could just kind of clear salary, right? Like, so, like, what if you could basically, like, unload, like, Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura, right? Like, what if you could unload some of your salary pieces? I mean, you'd have to give up more than that, obviously, but Brandon Ingram is making $36 million right now, right? So you'd have to at least clear $36 million. Between Rui and Gabe Vincent, you're talking $28 million. So you'd have to give up another like $8 million in salary. Maybe you could, stack. So the only way I would really be interested in trading for Brandon Ingram would be if you could kind of solve everything that you need to solve. So you do something like Rui, Gabe Vincent, Jalen Hood-Schifino, maybe throw in like, Cam Reddish and whatever. Like, right? Like, you kind of stack 3-4 guys, let it be the Pelicans' problem, let them have to waive some guys, get rid of some guys, whatever. And you basically clear salary, you clear roster spots, and on top of that, you are now in a position to where if Brandon Ingram is like, no, I only want a max, and he walks, it's not the end of the world because you cleared a bunch of salary, right? So, for example, let's say you give up everything that I mentioned, like all the players, you give up like 5 players to go get Brandon Ingram. So now you've cleared, basically, you're doing like a 4 or 5 for 1 swap. You've cleared like 4 roster spots, right? Now you could go and get the pieces that you need. You could go make another trade. You could do whatever you want to do, right? You could bring in Gary Trent Jr. You could bring in a Spencer Dinwiddie. Maybe take a flyer on another guy. Boom, there you go. Maybe bring in one of your two-way guys like a Blake Hinson. Maybe he comes in and actually gets a regular contract. Whatever, right? Roster set. You're intact. Boom, let's go, right? Then, let's say next season, Brandon Ingram's like, I want a max. But you only gave up, let's say you did give up a first for Brandon Ingram. It would be hard to swallow that first. But if you can now clear a ton of salary, right? You'd have like D'Lo's contract falling off, Brandon Ingram's contract falling off. LeBron could opt out and kind of give you more wiggle room, however you want. He was willing to take a discount this past year. But now, let's say you have $60 million in salary falling off, right? And basically your only salary players are like Max Christie, who's making $8 million, Austin Reeves, who's making $12 million, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, plus, like your rookies and stuff like Connect and things like that. Lakers might end up having money to sign a max and then some, right? Because LeBron can manipulate his contract however he wants. So like he could easily just go like, okay, like let's get these two guys. Oh, but I need to take a $5 million discount. Fine, then I'll do that. And then best case scenario, you sign if you can sign Brandon Ingram for say $30 million a year, then why not, right? Like let's say Brandon Ingram's great. What if he is? What if he's great with the Lakers and the Lakers just are fantastic, right? And Brandon Ingram is able to stay healthy or whatever, right? It kind of gives you a win-win proposition, right? Because it's like if Brandon Ingram is great and he's willing to take less money to stay with the Lakers, boom, you re-sign him, you keep him, and let's go, right? If it doesn't, and he can't stay healthy, and he wants a max, you could just let him walk, and now you got all this cap space, potentially. Again, it depends on what else the Lakers do, but you basically unload all of your long-term salary on the Pelicans, let them figure it out, and take it from there. You know, and they might because they're gonna want something. They're not gonna want to lose Brandon Ingram for nothing, right? And guys like Rui makes sense for them as like a backup forward, and gives them Zion insurance. So if Zion ends up missing a game or two, right, Rui could easily slot into that 4. And then Gabe Vincent they probably would keep. Like he'd be a solid 3-and-D guy for them that could play alongside CJ McCollum as well as DeJounte Murray. So they probably would keep those guys. It's just the rest of the guys, right? Like what else would they want to do with that? But other than that, like if you have to trade like Rui, D'Lo, and and Gabe Vincent to go get I guess you wouldn't have to do that. Like Rui and D'Lo basically get you there. You'd have to throw in like a vet minimum guy. So you throw in like Reddish, and boom, there's Brandon Ingram's money. So like let's say you did that, and you had to give up a first. It isn't worth it to me. But again, if you could unload 4 or 5 guys, and because you got to keep in mind, you can carry something like 25 guys until the season begins, right? Like they could easily do the trade, and then the Pelicans would just waive and cut guys and do whatever they have to do, right? So like it is one of those things where you could easily work that out. So unless the Lakers are solving other problems besides bringing in Brandon Ingram, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that, yes, you definitely need to just let Brandon Ingram go elsewhere? Don't worry about it. Let him live his best life and go to a different team? Do you think, no, you got to go get Brandon Ingram? Brandon Ingram makes a lot of sense. Do you kind of like my proposition, I guess, of like I'll trade for Brandon Ingram if you can kind of solve other issues? Or do you think, no, just stay away from Ingram, period? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.